Good morning. Children.
Yeah, at the respective places,
Their place.
education, out of my hair.
They still call and they need money.
Every damn day. It's not in.
Just want to ask you kindly, not today.
Good morning. It's now 9:04. I'll call the Sewage and Water Board Governance Committee meeting to order. Special counsel, please call the roll.
Director Kennedy,
Here.
Director Sloss, Director Howard. Here. Director Cole. Here. Director Barnes. Here. I'd like to mention also that we have Dr. Schultz
Here.
today. Chair, we do have a quorum.
Excellent. We will now proceed with our one presentation item. Jamie Parker.
Yes, so this is a presentation on the 2025 legislative updates that we know so far. Can we get the presentation up, please? Thank you. So the legislative session in Baton Rouge is upon us. It officially starts April 14th, and the legislature is scheduled to adjourn by June 12th. The first thing we'll discuss is our number one legislative priority, which is our capital outlay request. Everyone should have a two-pager handout. This is something that we are circulating among the delegation. We have started our rounds and we'll be continuing as the session progresses. But this is requesting our 29 million capital outlay request to be prioritized for in priority one for spending. And while the 29 million is our total ask, we've been sharing that we would gladly accept any amount that we can use towards power complex projects. And those projects are identified. They would be ready to start if a smaller amount was received.
Jamie, who is handling this for us? Is there a sponsor? Or is it just go into something general?
Well, we are making our rounds through our representatives and senators sharing the information. I'm not sure if there's
Ultimately, we will meet with Senator Harris, who we are hoping that would be the advocate on behalf of the.
Yeah, I don't, for capital outlay, I think you just
Just put
send
it
it in. Yeah, it doesn't need like a bill sponsor.
But it's always nice to have a champion or an
Yeah.
advocate, and we're counting on, we're not taking him for granted, but we will be asking him to lead the effort.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next are, it's an overview of the bills that have been filed that are specific to the Sewage and Water Board. So the first is House Bill 190. This is a bill that is seeking to repeal an act from last year, Act 384, which required City Civil Service and State Civil Service to develop a plan that would transfer Sewage and Water Board employees to State Civil Service and implement that plan within a year. So during the last session, that act was passed. Then Representative Hilferty introduced the House resolution that effectively repealed it, but this is the official repealing of any remnant of that act, so that that transfer to state civil service is no longer in state law.
It's no longer what, I'm sorry?
In state law. There was one section that was inadvertently left in,
Mhm.
and so this is a cleanup bill to
Cleanup bill.
remove everything. The next is House Bill 609, which was introduced by Representative Landry, and it authorizes us to assess a stormwater fee. So we're appreciative of the legislation. We still need to work through it and read through it, but it would be specific to New Orleans and the Sewage and Water Board giving us the authority to assess a stormwater fee on developed parcels within the city to help pay for drainage.
Who authored that?
Landry.
Landry.
Manning.
Mandy.
The next one is House Bill 611. This was filed on Friday, I believe, by Representative Hilferty, and it makes a couple of key changes. So the first would be changing the appointment process and the composition of the Board of Directors. So the board would remain at 11 members, but the manner in which board members would be appointed would change. So it would no longer be primarily through the announcement of a vacancy and the selection committee process that's spearheaded by the university presidents. Now, the following would receive the appointment of one or more members. So it would be the mayor, both at-large city council members.
Just to be clear, they would be appointing
Yes.
somebody, not,
Without any review.
they would not be sitting as a
Right.
board member. Sorry.
The chair of the Public Works, Sanitation, and Environment Committee of the council would appoint one member. The secretary of DOTD would appoint one member. The State Bond Commission would appoint one member. The Board of Liquidation City Debt, also one member. The Chief Resilience Officer of the state of Louisiana would have one appointment. The Chief Administrative Officer, CAO of the city, would have one member. And then the legislative delegations from Orleans Parish would have 2 members.
Did I miss something? Does the mayor
Yes.
Yes.
have one? Okay.
So from the city's perspective, it would be the mayor with one appointment, the council
With two,
with
three,
3,
CAO
CAO.
with one.
the CAO,
and the Board of Lic.
and the Board of Liquidation.
And then two from the delegation.
2 from the delegation,
From the state administration,
and then DOTD, the Bond Commission,
And who's authoring this?
resiliency.
and Resiliency.
I'm still going at 10. Maybe my math is slow. That was 11 seats.
But the city council gets, each at-large member gets an
Mhm.
appointment,
And the chair.
and the chair of Public Works.
Public Works.
That's 3.
That's
Are
three.
you still short? Are you still short?
Yeah. What is the state? You said what was the bond commission,
The Bond Commission,
DOT?
DOTD, the Chief Resilience Officer, and the legislative delegation gets 2.
They get 2. Okay.
Yes.
That's the part I missed.
So the governor gets 4.
You
Basically.
Yeah.
Say that again?
So the governor
Governor
basically
gets 4.
gets 4.
The way I read that.
What happens to these requirements that they have for councilmanic district representation and
They go away.
they go away? Okay,
There's a total replacement of the board structure.
okay.
Will be reconstituted again. Reconstituted.
When was the last time the board was reconstituted?
2018.
Well, they added the city council person back then.
Yes.
There was a major reconstitution after Katrina.
So 2005, 2006, 2018, and then now.
Yeah, I think there were 3 reconstitutions after the.
Three after Katrina.
And that was removing the city council members, because at one point you had one council member, two council members, and then went down to one, and then to none. And then with the last reconstitution, it brought a city council member back onto the board.
I wonder if city council members can appoint each other.
Residency requirement or?
Yeah.
Currently, that is a requirement.
Well, considering there's going to be appointees from the state, that's not going to be a requirement of the state.
So he can, whoever-
But
they can appoint from wherever.
They can appoint from wherever? So
The state,
in the state.
the statewide ones, that's what I'm hearing.
So while none of these were initiated by us, obviously we'll ask for your insight on what direction we go with the second one, 609. But 611, we're not sure what, if any, action we would take as the administrative part of the board, but I don't know if there's anything else.
I mean, eliminating that nominating process is a real issue, because that was the check on the politics of the thing.
I wonder if there's a way to, instead of saying yay or nay on this, but to make a statement about what isn't reflected here. So we're not sort of saying, no way, Jose, but it's kind of like, this eliminates important pieces to this, the nominating process, the selection committee, things like that. I don't know. I don't know if
I
that.
think we need to, look at that one really closely.
What's the timing? I know this session starts next week. When would this?
I would just have to keep tabs on it when it goes to committee, and I can keep the committee informed.
has it been assigned?
I'm pretty sure, yes, probably House Municipal.
House Municipal? Okay.
I'm forgetting the formal name of it, yes.
And is the chair favorable to this, or has he spoken on this?
I'd have to see who the chair of that committee is.
So part of what I that would be useful when we're talking about this sort of stuff is to understand process and people. If for example, someone from the minority party wants to push something forward and it's going to a committee we know is hostile to whatever they're pushing forward, I feel differently than if it's a bill coming from majority party to a committee that's very sort of sympathetic to the ideals of that bill. So the process to me informs how animated I would get about any of this. So understanding this is coming from a Democrat in a Republican near supermajority legislature, but is it going to a committee that will be receptive to this, or is this going to a committee that will not be receptive to this? And then based on that process, what does the majority party think about this? Is this, and what does the governor think about this? Because those are things that are gonna sort of speak to whether or not this is real in terms of going somewhere.
Okay.
Or we can ask our lobbyists to provide some insight on what you asked. This became evident to us yesterday,
Okay.
and we thought it's pertinent to share.
Sure.
We just weren't sure what direction, if anything, we would take, independent of the board, obviously, so.
Anything with the Orleans delegation would probably be productive or advisable.
And this was a download from the lobbyist yesterday. That's how we got this information.
Jamie did her own research.
Okay.
It'd be also interesting to know, like, is this her bill? Did someone ask her to put it forward?
Yeah.
We don't have that intel.
Yeah. There was no communication prior to that from Representative Hilferty to us, giving us a heads up on that at all, so. But we'll do everything we can to gather information that might be helpful to you.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
one other change in House Bill 611 has to do with special counsel. And it would give the board the authority to employ the services of an attorney and fix the fees or salary for that position.
This is in lieu of having the attorney for the board nominated by the city attorney. In other words, it breaks the link between those two
That's correct.
offices and gives us more independence.
Yes.
Who's the author of that one?
It's part of the same
The same bill.
The
Bill.
governance, yeah.
611, Representative Hilferty. And then House Bill 612, which is also a Rep. Hilferty bill, would require the Sewage and Water Board to establish and maintain employment lists containing names of persons eligible for appointment to the various positions to be filled by the board.
What is that?
What does that mean?
In our interpretation is that the exempt or appointed positions like myself, the special counsel, the general superintendent, those are appointed position by the board.
Mhm.
That can't possibly mean that, could it?
I mean, we don't know what else it could
Put
mean.
this in.
Also,
This was also Representative Hilferty, so I have a,
Are we sitting down with Hilferty? Representative
We-
Hilferty?
We'd
Right,
like to,
yeah.
yes. We were waiting for some insight and who would want to be in that conversation.
I would.
So when they talk about the board, are they talking about the board of the Sewage and Water Board, or are they talking about the Sewage and Water Board?
I think they're talking about us,
the Sewage and Water Board.
employees.
Could you keep an employment list for those?
I mean, you
Just
have
want
to
to know who's appointed.
Well, why wouldn't they know that? anyway?
Eligible for appointment? I mean, it's
I would
like.
say
you don't-
eligible is wide
You
open.
don't normally keep a list of who you might
Who you might hire.
hire for the general counsel or the, that's, I don't understand what it's about.
You may relate back to her original bill regarding House Bill number 611. But I think because of 611 basically gives the appointments to various entities. And so those entities, speculating, those entities may have recommendations for those three positions that are appointed by the board. So, but I think a conversation with Hilferty will have to be had to understand
Right.
where she's coming from and what her meaning is.
Okay.
So would you like us to reach out to her and on your behalf and arrange for,
I think we need to, yeah, when somebody puts in bills affecting us, and they,
we would typically do that. A couple of these, I feel like it's more the board call rather than us, you know, in terms of what the governance structure looks like.
Yeah.
I don't know, we can weigh in as much as you do. 609 for certain, we would like your support to work collaboratively with the author to make that successful.
I have a question about 609.
Yeah.
So I heard mention that it's looking at developed land, and so open lots would not be assessed the stormwater fee? Is that correctly?
That's a definition in the bill.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. A developed parcel.
Mhm.
But in working with, Representative Landry, we would hopefully able to come to some meeting of the minds where we're having authority to do a stormwater fee, but also continue to have flexibility in socializing it and developing it in a way that will be received well and supported by
Yeah.
the community.
I think I was just trying to get clarity because I know we had the consultant, and so I just wanted clarity on if someone has empty lots, which we have, right? Those drains still need to be cleared, right? And so if the consultant is saying that we can capture enough from developed parcels, that's great. But I don't want to ignore the vast majority of empty lots that have drains that still need to be cleared. That's my only concern.
Well, I think there's a big concern, and this isn't because of Representative Landry, but the governor's office came back with a full-blown bill setting out the terms of the drainage fee, which I don't think makes sense. I mean, I think we need the flexibility as we go along to, but make any adjustments. Why do you
Yes.
even have public hearings if you can't make adjustments?
Yeah, it's the way it's presented today, it's too prescribed, too
prescribed.
detailed, and our goal is to ask for it to be more general and more flexible, to allow us to insert our model that we've been working on for several years now, and socialize it with the hope for obviously collective approval. So we're told that this is a placeholder, and they're open to suggested language to replace it. So we're hoping that would be the case.
I want to just revisit something we discussed. And so our champion, so to speak, is still the city's lobbying team that we have access to. We don't have a point person. We have that. Or who do we go to?
We have one appointed lobbyist by the city, so we don't have our own, so to speak. We have a joint access to a lobbying firm, and Paul Rainwater is our go-to person who advocate on our behalf.
And why do we have a joint arrangement with the city? Is that required? Because that seems to me that a lot of things we end up with aren't necessarily aligning with the city.
We inherited that structure, when I took office, and I think just the way I think we should consider it.
Because there are conflicts of interest inherent in that
I don't know what would stop us from engaging a lobby.
arranging, and I don't either.
So if I recall correctly, the last legislative session or the one before that, we did get our independent group lobbyists, and that did cause some friction with the city. So that was something we did at least one or two legislative sessions ago.
Yeah, that was where we augmented our current lobby. I mean, we didn't get rid of or replace them. I mean, we just added
We added.
more, and then, that did not sit well with multiple
not.
people.
Is there, I guess I'm concerned about capacity and conflict. Was there ever a discussion during that time that maybe within Paul Rainwater's team, that there was someone who could be our person? Or I just can't imagine everyone's leaning on this one channel.
We've never had any interaction with anybody but Paul
Okay,
for the last 6 years that I've been here.
okay.
I mean, if it's my choice, I would have an independent lobbyist.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, have we ever, and I know obviously we didn't generate these, do we have an example of the last time Sewage and Water Board wanted a bill created and the lobbyists took it forward for it? Has that happened in the last 6 years? A bill drafted based on what our agenda was?
There were some successes. I mean, last year was not a very good year for us with capital outlay, but the year before, there was some success, and he played a role, effective role. So, yeah, I don't want to take credit away from him.
Sure.
And, my point is not necessarily to have a different company or lobbying firm, but having a direct access to that and having different resources, separate resources, may be more effective for us than just competing for the same resources with the city.
Yeah, I'm saying the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, and then the last thing is an update on our federal funding requests for fiscal year 2026. So a small group of a small team have been working on applications and supporting documents to submit 2 requests to our congressional delegation. The first one would be for water treatment plant upgrades. This would be under the Water Resources Development Act of 2022. So this funding is already authorized. We're just requesting an allocation. And that would fund critical projects, the design of those projects at both our East Bank and West Bank water treatment plants to address aging infrastructure and improve our ability to provide clean drinking water. This funding request does come with a local cost share that would be 25% that we would pay, and the projects that have been selected have all been approved already by the Corps of Engineers. The second funding request would be for an earmark from the EPA's Clean Water State Revolving Fund, and this would be used to support equipment investments at both East Bank and West Bank plants. And so we're right at the finish line of submitting our applications. We have 2 members from the executive leadership team, the General Superintendent's Office, Steve Nelson and Caitlin Timrack, who are in DC or will be shortly and are scheduled to meet with members of Congress tomorrow to just have a face-to-face and discuss the importance of this funding and these projects on the utilities' behalf.
Jamie, are the actions in Washington cutting off funding sources affecting us in any way? I mean, are any of these sources at risk in the EPA?
I mean, the answer is we don't know.
We don't know.
I mean, we're staying the course. They haven't told us not to continue to interact, so we're hoping that eventually, it may be slow, it may be delayed, but we're hoping that we'll be successful, but it's a wait and see, unfortunately.
I assume that's part of the reason for the meetings also.
I mean, this is a typical course. I mean, I'm usually there. I chose to send Steve and Caitlin for, more exposure, and they can own the success of those grants and funding, but we typically go out and go up and advocate anyway, so.
Can I make a suggestion? I think you're right about some of these bills being things that can be handled by, obviously the drainage fee is the one that needs to be handled by people that are individually involved in that. But I think this committee needs to go look at the one changing the board composition. But I think we're going to need another meeting to do that, because I think we need an outline of pros and cons and a more detailed analysis of what is changing, what is staying the same, and go back and talk to some of the people that were involved in the post-Katrina reforms to make a decision of where we go with that.
Agreed. Because I think, to Janet's point, I don't understand exactly the motivations. And unless you understand the motivations, it's hard to understand sort of what they're trying to accomplish and whether or not that structure is going to meet what they say their stated goals are.
So, and I think we need to do that pretty quickly, because given how fast legislation moves. And maybe before that, someone could have a talk with Hilferty to find out what she's trying to, from her point of view, what she's trying to accomplish.
I agree.
Anybody know Hilferty?
But the last one as well, what
Yeah, what
the
is that?
intent is.
Yeah, that's just, yeah. All right.
Okay, so yeah, we will reach out to Representative Hilferty to get the meeting, and then maybe I'll prepare a memo of sorts that lays out the changes that are
Yeah.
proposed in House Bill 611.
Send the bill, I mean,
Yes, the language
just
to the
the
bill.
law and the new bill too,
Oh,
just to help with your analysis. For anyone who wants to dig in for fun.
One of my biggest
Okay.
comments.
So that's all I have.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions? All right, any public comment?
Any public comment? No public comment, Chair.
All right. If there are no other matters, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this committee meeting.
Second.
It's moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We are now adjourned.